Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Kato. The Special Chamber of Kosovo in The Hague is hearing closing arguments in the trial of former Kosovo President Hashim Thaçi and 3 other former leaders of the Kosovo Liberation Army accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity during and after the 1998 to 1999 conflict. The prosecution has demanded sentences of up to 45 years, highlighting killings, torture and persecution of civilians, including political opponents and minority groups. To provide insight into the trial, we are joined by Małgorzata Andrzejczak-Świątek from the Institute of Legal Sciences and at the Polish Police Academy. Since 2018, our guest has worked in Kosovo for the Council of Europe as an independent human rights consultant, supporting the implementation of international law and monitoring the prosecution of former leaders at The Hague. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Hello. Thank you for the invitation.
So let's set a little bit of context for our viewers. What is the president of Kosovo, the former president of Kosovo, and his associates accused of, and what is the trial about?
So Hashim Thaçi and 3 co-defendants, as you said, Kadri Fezel, Recep Selimi and Jakub Krasnigi, are charged with first, persecution, torture, murder and unlawful detention and enforced disappearance of persons during the Kosovo War 1998-1999, but also the murder of individuals they considered political opponents or elect collaborators with Serbs. That's why all these actions constitute war crimes and war crimes against humanity. But we have to say also that evidence and controversy surrounding theories of organ smuggling and human trafficking have arisen in the past. This is also important context because this evidence was documented in Council of Europe reports in early as 2011, but it was not ultimately included in the indictment and it is not being pursued. It is worth noting that Thaçi also faces a separate indictment for obstructing justice and attempting to influence witness testimony. This is additional charge and additional case, but connected with this context of this procedure.
Can you tell us why this trial is being held at The Hague and not in Kosovo?
It is important question and very also important precedence in international law also. The trial is being held before the Kosovo Specialist Chamber, a special judicial body established by the Kosovo Parliament in 2015, but based in The Hague. One of the main reasons for moving the trial to The Hague was the need for adequate witness protection. There was a high risk of intimidation, of withdrawal of testimony against top officials, and in reality has shown that even this approach proved impossible to avoid. So, as I said before, additional charges and additional case for former President Hashim Thaçi. Furthermore, the decision to relocate the trial was also based on doubts about the independence of the Kosovo justice system regarding former KLA members, a lack of public acceptance and a strong myth of KLA heroism. I have to say that from the perspective of the society is a great problem, because there is no public acceptance for this
I just wanted to jump in there and ask, what is the perception of this case among Kosovo Albanians? Because some of whom see it as actually a challenge to the legitimacy of their struggle for independence.
Yes, as I said before, from the beginning, there was no public acceptance for this process. The main reason is a strong mythology of KLA. And members of KLA. That's why this process is proceduring in Hague, not in Kosovo. And today we also have to say that nothing has changed in this case. We have no public acceptance, but maybe a little kind of agreement because of strong influences and the pressure from the European Union and the USA. Um, it contributed to the Kosovo authorities agreeing to allow the court to operate outside its border, even though its former jurisdiction it's based on Kosovo law. It's very important. And you ask about Albanians and about this content, about public acceptance, and I think it's also important question because it's interesting that 19 of the victims are Albanians, with Serbs and Turks making up the minority. What explains this? The trial primarily concerns allegation of abuse and crimes that occurred after or near the formal end of the fighting, often in the relationship between the KLA and the local Albanian population. The accused are suspected of persecution within the community. This is why Kosovo Albanians, for example, suspected of collaborating with Serbia or opposing the government during the political transition, have largely become victims. But it doesn't influence for the public acceptance by Albanians in Kosovo, especially in Pristina.
I wanted to ask at what stage is the trial now? We're still waiting for the verdict. We've had the closing remarks held this week. So where are we in terms of the trial itself?
Yes, as you said, the trial has now entered its final phase before the verdict. This week, we have closing arguments taking place. We are after closing arguments of prosecution and closing arguments of the defense. So this means that first, the prosecution and the prosecutor's office have just delivered their closing arguments, presenting their assessment of the evidence. The defense and defendants are also delivering their closing arguments. And after the conclusion of closing arguments, the panel of judges will conclude the trial, after which the deliberation and sentencing phase will begin. So we have to say that, as announced, the court may allow up 90 days from the conclusion of closing arguments to announce the verdict, meaning a verdict is expected in the spring, 19 days, so we can say in 3 months, more or less.
And what does this mean in terms of the closing arguments being held this week? What does it mean? And can you tell us a little bit about the position of the parties that are involved?
Mm-hmm. So this is the standpoint, the final standpoint of both sides. And we have to say that the defense claims, of course, the allegations are unproven. According to the defense, the prosecution filed to establish direct evidence that Thaçi and the rest accused personally committed or ordered the crimes. There is no evidence that he gave specific orders or received reports from those committing the crimes. This is the key aspect. So this is the standpoint of the defense. And prosecutors argue that the evidence indicates that Thaçi and the other defendant had a common criminal plan. It's a very important concept in humanitarian criminal law. So common criminal plan and operated as a KLA group with common responsibility for actions that led to war crimes or crimes against humanity, exerting a real influence of the soldiers' conduct. So the prosecution is seeking a maximum sentence of 45 years in prison, while the defense, of course, is seeking an acquittal due to lack of evidence. And we have to say that it's very difficult context, also political, geopolitical context, but we are therefore waiting for the decision because it's also an important step in the development of international jurisprudence in the area of humanitarian law and individual responsibility.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that insight. It's definitely a developing and much broader case that we'll be following. Thank you so much for your insight. Małgorzata Andrzejczak-Świątek, Institute of Legal Sciences at the Polish Police Academy. Great to have you as our guest.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for World Talks on TVP World. I'm Marie Kato, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.